calling from a 617 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
This is you.
Hello, it's great to be on the line. I've been a big fan for a while. My dad introduced me to you guys when I was pretty young, back when Michael was around. Huge fan of his work. He lives on, obviously. I just wanted to, first thank you guys and say that Emma needs her own soundboard.
I do.
Also,
I'm so sick of the shofar thing. Wait, what did you say your name? Where are you calling from?
I did not. I am Tom from Newton, Massachusetts, by the beautiful Star Market right over the highway. Look that one up, folks. And I just wanted to ask about, the future of media literacy, especially as we go into the Apple Vision Pro era of technology. I'm definitely on the younger end of viewers of your show, and I think you do a great job of, reaching a very wide range. But I fear that a lot of people my age are just going to not know shit for their whole lives, And, the sort of thing has been a problem in this country for ages, but it seems like there's just more and more opportunities every day for it to get worse. So I just wanted, your guys' sort of thoughts on that and what we can actually do outside of trying to directly educate people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I appreciate the question. I think there is more good news than there is bad, at least for, younger generations, millennial and younger. There's a there's a reason why, Nancy Pelosi and Biden think TikTok is making people more anti-Semitic in their way, and that they can't understand why young people are so outraged over what's happening in Gaza. It's because literally they are not getting the same information that we are getting. There is and I see it with, honestly, my parents, complete disconnect in a kind of 50 or older generation.
The cable news era.
Right. There's a 40 to 50 years old at this point. There's a bit of a mix. And then 35 and younger, people are all getting their information from a wide variety of sources, including, and this is, and I'm sorry, I'm always bringing it back to Israel, but it's just, of course, on my mind, having more global media literacy, as opposed to just reading the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and thinking that's a balanced perspective. I'm hopeful in that way, because I do think that there's been a democratization of information for younger people. Well, with that said, though, there are a lot of grifters that want to capitalize.
And there's a lot being invested. I mean,
Yes.
I think the AI boom is in part a response to elites realizing, we need to make up with computing power what we lack with people power. And I think I'm sort of generally an optimist, and so I agree with Emma. And it's interesting. I'm curious, roughly how old you are, because me being 35, I remember the pre-internet era pretty strongly. That's where I came up. That's where I saw the Iraq War. And it wasn't until I could actually access the internet and read people criticize these things where it really opened things up. Now, we have just not a great public school system in lots of areas, and media literacy just in general has always been something we haven't done. And so when you really open up the gates, I think generally people find the right things, but I think you have a bunch of people who just don't have the tools, and you end up doing QAnon or Flat Earth or whatever, cul-de-sacs of and what's really bad about those things is that they're alienating you from your fellow people, because if you start believing these things, you start believing, well, look at that person, they must be part of the conspiracy that's lying to me about if the world's flat, or if Israel's an apartheid state, for instance. I don't know. I think it's interesting. Ed Zitron was on Chapo Trapos. He's an internet reporter, and there's this thing going on, this talk going on about the internet now, that we have sort of a dead internet where so much of it is spam and AI created bullshit, and search results aren't usable anymore. That's qualitatively, that gels with my experience.
That's true.
And
but we don't need to romanticize the internet of old either.
That's true too. Yeah, absolutely. But I think it is getting worse, and I think part of it is because it's all these people are creating sludge for profit.
Yep.
Really, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm 20 years old, so I remember, George Bush, but, existing. But I really, I had like a home computer when I was tiny, obviously, and then I didn't really grow up with a phone. But at some point in middle school, I was on my phone, seeing a bunch of alt-right stuff when Trump was running. And there was a point where I was about 13 years old, and I was essentially, a fascist in training. And had I not had the education, the friends, or the parents I had, and I eventually ended up reading Michael's book Against the Web and writing about that in school. But that's sort of why that it pertains to me. Sort of, I feel that as we get more waves of Andrew Tates and this and that we'll have just a universe of like little microcosms that we can't reach anyone from,
There's a ton of, to your point, and Matt, I may be able to speak on this more, of what I think parents are observing of content that is very alt-right and female kind of hating coded, directed at tween to teen boys, disguised as other kinds of content on the internet. So that's a concern too.
Yeah, I think that's actually the key thing I would like to see sort of explored by somebody, maybe a book or something, is the appealing explicitly to kids. And like Tim Pool's telling on himself, Tim Pool is grooming kids for the right wing. Absolutely, with his show every fucking day. When he's talking about Marvel and then talking about these right wing shit, like we'll have Jim Jordan in the studio. Like that shit is that is conditioning, and it's explicitly like there's a reason we don't talk about kid shit, but frankly, like in terms of just brainwashing people and getting people when they're young and impressionable, it's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interacting with like my younger cousins and that, they're growing up on their phones essentially. It's I don't mean to do the old Facebook post, but it really is alarming. I find myself at times like just spending way too much screen time, and
same.
It just concerns me that these kids are going to be like 3-4 years old. God knows what it'll do to people with ADHD and how it'll advance certain problems for people, and we don't have the resources to deal with that in the first place. But there's a real education gap since COVID, and I had my own derailment, but I like to think I sort of had a good run of it as far as timing goes, and there's just a lot of kids out there missing fundamental knowledge. So it really just is something that is on my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I've also noticed the drop people have been pegging in-person socialization time that has dropped precipitously, and it's interesting. I'm not. I think the simple answer people point to is phones, and I think that definitely probably has a big part to it. But it's interesting. I've also seen people point out that certain communities that are less phone, like poor, for instance, that have less phones and less like social media tied to, have been experiencing that worse. So there's something else going on as well with regards to like how we, because I think both the socialization and education, those are two priority things. And meanwhile, we have Daily Wire talking about child labor being good.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that ultimately is something that needs to be protected against, is we need to not be putting kids to work, because clearly teenagers and have enough to deal with between like needing to socialize with friends and learn things than fucking flipping burgers at McDonald's like I did.
But let me say, caller, it's cool to hear you speak about our show in those circumstances.
It's cool to feel old.
Yeah, well, it's I want to play that role too, because I was like you. I was listening to TYT every day, and you reposted that Sam Harris jank debate, and that changed. Like, I remember thinking, because I was an edgy atheist at the time, right? And I wanted to like screw religion. And then I started to think, okay, maybe some of these people that are providing, like, maybe I shouldn't watch Bill Maher every weekend, because he's
oh god,
that's what it was like too.
Imagine that timeline, Emma.
I know. I could have been on the other side.
You could be in the basement right now mixing cocktails.
Oh my god. Well, at least least I'd get a nice high out of it and just be fucked up out of my mind on
Somebody
that
should
podcast.
save this segment for when Emma does her centrist pivot.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll remember, Emma. We'll know.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. It warms my heart. Really appreciate you calling in, and have a good one.
Thank you guys. Left is best.
Left is best.